What's up? It's the Rex coming at you from our lair in the basement. It's been a while since we've done a review or an interview, and we're looking to get back into it again. And next week, we want to talk about next week. We're heading to the Blitz Kids show in Morgantown. We're going to be seeing, of course, the headliner Blitz Kids. Been the first time they've, I guess, done a tour in about 10 years or more. And so Ricky and I got tickets for that. We're going to see Ghost Road, Children of October.
Flying Bird.
Seeing him. Yeah. Okay. And so we're looking forward to be able to get back out and seeing the show again. With any luck, maybe we're going to get a couple of interviews in next week. So we're going to focus on our review. And I was thinking, what I want to do a review on. I haven't done a review in probably a couple of years. I mean, a lot going on in our lives, a lot of changes, and I haven't really had the time. So I was like, well, I want to do a review on. So this came in the mail today. This is our Christmas gift.
Hold it up. Let's say that.
Yeah. Highlander. This is a special edition box set. Came from England. What's the company put that up?
Zavvi.
Zavvi. Now, you can look this up and find. I stumbled onto it. Someone had a review on it, and I was like, I didn't know this was even out. Now, anyone that knows me knows I'm probably the biggest fucking sci-fi sword and sorcery nutball there is out there. I fucking dig the sword and sorcery shit. And I go way back with Highlander. I can still remember when it came out. It was not promoted very well. Back in the 80s, it came out about 86, 87. It was not promoted very well. The movie kind of slid under the radar, and I think I caught it actually on cable, like HBO late one night. And it was probably about 2 years after the movie was even released. Didn't make fucking sense at all. I was like, what is this shit? I didn't understand the story. And back then, they didn't do a lot of promo, explaining what this movie is. It ain't like today you go online and just find anything you can about the movie. So Highlander really slid under the radar, and as the years went by, it developed a very small fan base. And, of course, a bunch of shitty sequels, We might talk a little bit about them as we go through, and I bought a couple other different. I bought the regular VHS when it came out. I got the Immortal Edition,
Director's Cut.
That came out years ago, and then this came out just I think around Halloween it got released, and I found out and I snagged this motherfucker up. Now, again, to see this being produced in this kind of glory, I got a fucking heart on just.
It's in 4K, guys.
It's 4K. I don't even have a 4K player. We don't have a 4K player. But I don't give a fuck because I'm going to get a 4K player.
And plus we bought it for the goods inside.
Yeah, it's what's the goods in there. Now, I have not opened this up. This is, I guess you would call this an unboxing. I have seen what comes in it, but I have not actually seen it and held it in my hand what's in this box.
The plastic is off, but he hasn't seen nothing inside, and I haven't either.
See the back of that?
Let me grab this here for you.
Yeah, Highlander is really stands unique. It's not a Star Wars ripoff. It's not. I was talking about sword and sorcery, and it's not a Conan the Barbarian ripoff. I mean, dude, how many fucking movies do you know about immortals who live? You cannot die unless you cut their head off.
There you go.
And they spin it. And for those out there, I'm sure unless you live under a rock and have not seen Highlander, watched the TV series or watched any of the movies. It takes place in the 1500s. Scottish Highlander clan, a guy named Connor MacLeod. He's killed in battle. He resurrects. You don't understand why. His clan is freaking out. They're like shitting their pants at this guy.
They think it's sorcery devil.
Yeah, they think it's of the devil. And this man is back walking again. Well, he don't understand either. So they banish him. He's forced to live out as an outcast. Meets a woman. Falls in love, lives with her, and this until a few years go by, another guy shows up, the name of Sean Connery Ramirez. Sean Connery played this character, did an excellent job. If I remember right, he was probably the most highly paid member of the cast. And
also, this is Clancy Brown's very first movie.
Yes, Clancy Brown. There's even a book on the making of this. When I get a chance, I'll pull this book out. And Clancy Brown talks about his experiences making this movie and how he got into the character of the Kurgan. If you don't know who the Kurgan is, he's probably the most badass, wicked villain in any movie. He's right up here with Darth Vader, man.
Yeah.
He's right up here with Darth Vader. Now, again, keep in mind, Highlander is very obscure, a tiny, small budget, independent made flick at that time. Again, even today, a lot of people have not seen it, don't understand it. But to see this being brought out, this is for the fans, people that who have supported this movie for all these years. And I'm glad to see it. So let's dig into this motherfucker.
Also, a shout out to Adam Jode because he loves Highlander.
Oh, yeah. Man. Highlander, I love it. To me, it's the one movie you can stand alone. So you got your slipcase box.
Yes.
And so right here, got the Kurgan, Clancy Brown in all of his glory. This is the final battle taking place. Now, again, as we were talking about what's this story about, he finds out he's immortal. Ramirez shows up, trains him, tells him all about who the Immortals is, this race. It's a rare race. Every Immortals, they cannot die unless they're beheaded. And they have to fight down through the ages. They sword fight all the way down until the final two remain.
And your immortality doesn't kick in until you die your first death.
Once you die your first death, your immortality kicks in. And then from that point on, where you can permanently die is be beheaded. So they spend their time fighting down through the ages, meeting one another in battle. I mean, can you imagine living for hundreds of years, thousands of years, seeing history unfold? And the guy who wrote the movie, who actually originally came up with the original script, was named Gregory Wyden. Again, look at that right there.
Final battle.
That's the final battle right there.
Silver Cup.
Yeah, the Silver Cup sign. They fall down through the ceiling. But anyway, yeah. So here we go. Yeah, look at this. I dig this disc right here.
Yeah, let's do the discs first, and then.
Okay, so it's two discs. See
if I can get up in there a little bit. There we go.
4K Ultra HD.
And then this
is Blu-ray. So is that the movie?
This is the extras. There's the movie and extras on that one, and extras on that one.
So you can watch the extras on this. So we can't watch the extras. Yeah,
there's half extras. There's some extras on the first one, and then there's extras on the.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there is Ramirez himself. He's over 2,000 some years old. He was an Egyptian, became Spanish, and this man lived many lifetimes. And he shows up and trains Connor, tells him who he is about the Immortals, and trains him to be able to fight and prepare himself for the Gathering, which is where the final Immortals will battle for the quickening, the final quickening, the prize, where they have full power, pretty much to rule the world and do what they want to do.
And also a nice note, too, is Sean Connery also marries Shakiku, and her father ends up making this beautiful katana, which is given to Connor, which becomes his iconic sword throughout the movie. So
it's interesting history on that sword when they were making it. When they originally made Highlander, they wanted a sword to be like the center of the story. That sword, which represents what the Immortals are about. They wanted something that's going to stand out, really stick out. So they custom made the sword, but they wanted something really to stand out on that. So they took a head of a dragon. They cut it off another sword, and they glued it. They actually epoxied it onto the original movie sword, which was mostly just aluminum. They had aluminum blades, and they wanted to really to be able to stand out as distinct. And as you see, they were talking about with some of the extras on the original Immortal Edition, that every time they would swing it or clang against another sword, or if he dropped it, the head would fall off, so they had to glue it back on. So
what a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So look at there, man. You got your buttons.
You got some buttons, man. Let's look at that.
Who wants to live forever? Which brings us to another point of the movie, what really makes it stand out. Not only was it a great story, but Queen, Freddie Mercury and Queen did the soundtrack for it. And that is one of the things that really makes a movie, to me, awesome, is the soundtracks. I mean, if you just sat and watch a movie and didn't have a good soundtrack, it'd be pretty damn boring. Yeah. And when I think of Queen, I think about Flash Gordon. That's the first time I ever heard Queen, when they did the Flash Gordon soundtrack. Then a few years later, they did the Highlander. And I thought, the Prince of the Universe, the fucking theme song.
It kicks in as soon as the
intro. When that movie kicks on, you hear Sean Connery do the narrative about, from the dawn of time we came, silently down through the centuries, living many secret lives, struggling to reach the time of the gathering. With a few who remain will battle to the last. Yeah, I even know that fucking line by heart. I watched that movie so much.
You still got that last little bit.
Yeah, and he goes, no one's ever known we were among you
until now.
Then here we are. And that fucking, you don't even have to like Queen, but when you hear them kicking that song, that line,
they're great songs.
Dun 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 dun. Yeah, I mean, you just feel like you want to just kick some ass. And that movie is. Highlander just stands so distinct.
And they did one whole soundtrack. It's kind of magic just for the Highlander.
Yeah, they did a mini soundtrack for that whole. I mean, they said they watched it and read the script, and that inspired them that's the kind of music came out just from reading it. So to me, Queen is always going to be Flash Gordon and Highlander.
Mm-hmm.
So but anyway, you got them classic lines. Who's going to live forever? They did a song for that. Who wants to live forever? There can be only one. That classic Highlander line. I'm a man.
And what does the only there can be only one? What does that mean?
What's that?
What does it mean there can be only one?
Because there can only be one immortal in the end. They're talking about to the final battle, there will only be one immortal in the end. And it never was. No one even knew exactly how that rule came about. Now they did some shitty ass sequels that try to explain, how the immortals came.
But that's just something you don't want to explain.
That
Who cares?
came off the TV show. Anyone watch? What's that one called? Where
The Source.
The Source.
Yeah.
Highlander, The Source. Avoid that movie.
It's crap.
It's shit.
It's
I watched it once. Never. I almost threw the TV out the window. Don't ever fucking watch that thing. The TV show itself is pretty good. If you look at it from its
Final Dimension was good, and that was the third movie.
Dimension. Do not watch Highlander 2, The Quickening. I watched that. I watched the original edition, and I watched the Immortal edition, and it was all still shit.
I mean, Renegade.
Renegade. Well, they did another edition, too. Maybe it is the Renegade. But anyway, you can't polish a shitty turd. That's just a bad movie. Unless you look at it not being a Highlander.
Yeah.
But then again, it's just...
I thought the movie Fortress was originally a Highlander movie, and they found out it was a totally separate thing. So.
Anyway, let's look at the poster. Oh,
Posters.
A cool poster here. Let's look at this. I think it's kind of like what's on the slipcase cover. Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
That comes... Oh, that's just beautiful. I like that battle.
Yeah.
I really like the special effects, for what budget they had with the lightning and electricity, the gathering, when they would clash their blades, the energy that would come off of them and everything. I heard what they did, they had a battery. They would wear this battery with wires running down their sleeves, and it was attached to the hilt of the sword. And when they would touch blades, it would
spark,
that.
Yeah.
Spark off. And they said they would feel the handle get hot and so, I mean, I thought that was so cool, them kind of effects, the practical effects they had for Highlander. So that's cool. I really love the curtain. This helmet is so fucking cool, man.
You could actually buy this helmet on, someone makes this on Etsy.
You go to Etsy, yeah, someone does make that. But that helmet is so cool. That's an iconic Darth Vader, low-budget Darth Vader shit.
Oh, that's way better than Darth Vader.
For what that is. Okay, here we got some postcards. Got him as the Highlander, Connor McLeod. Here we got him in 1985, Connor McLeod.
That's my favorite.
That was the beginning of the Gathering, where him in the first sword battle. Again, when you see this movie, if you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. He's sitting there in his stadium.
He's just zoning out.
He's kind of zoned out. He's watching a bunch of shitty wrestling, which actually the wrestlers that were fighting when he was watching them was the Fabulous Freebirds versus the Garniers, I believe. So you definitely have that classic early 80s era wrestling he was attending. And then he just feels
He don't give a shit.
Yeah, he's sitting there and he's thinking about the past, like man has never changed. Hundreds of years, they still fight and they're still, he knows nothing but war. And all of a sudden he feels a presence.
Yeah.
Like something's hitting you.
And you can also feel people's violent, you can feel their other...
He can feel
emotions.
He's in touch. The Immortals can be in touch with their surroundings, people's emotions, their thoughts, their feelings, and everything. And Christopher Lambert really played that part really well. That these just aren't just guys that live forever. They're in tune with everything around them. And there's even a training scene where Ramirez is teaching him, and he's like, "Feel the stag," the big giant elk deer. He's like, "Feel the stag, feel his heartbeat." And as they take off racing, he draws strength and energy from the stag to outrun Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like the way the movie really emphasized that the Immortals...
They could tap into energy
of every living creature and to strengthen them, what they need. So, but anyway, That's after the
That's a
wrestle
great
match.
picture.
He feels the presence of another immortal. He goes to the parking garage. He gets challenged. Sword fight ensues, and of course he walks away.
And what was his
victorious.
name? Vizier?
Fazil.
Fazil.
Yeah. And these are like art pieces, like artists. There, of course, is Ramirez, original owner of the famous katana, which is passed to Connor.
Now that's my favorite poster.
Yeah,
man.
I
That's
actually
a-
have this poster, Highlander the store. My wife bought it for me for Christmas, like back in the 90s. Paid like $25 for it. This is the British poster of the movie.
Plus, you also have the novel of that too.
Yes. The novel, if you haven't read the novels, you can, I think it's still, you can pick up copies out there, but it's out of print. And it really goes into the immortals and their thinking and their history and who this mysterious race is. And Connor, and originally in the original script that Gregory White, who created Highlander, he said he came up with the concept. He was in the British Museum, and he was looking at this armor, and he said, what if the guy who wore this armor had lived down through time, and the guy who wore and fought this in battle was still alive today, and he lived down through time and see all these he fought in many, many hundreds of battles, and was still around today. How would his life be? How would he look at the world? And he came up with the concept. He was in college, and he came up with a film script. He was going to film school, and he came up with the script of Highlander. Originally, now if you know anything about Highlander, you know that the immortals supposedly can't have children. That's one of the things. They can't have offspring. In the original script that Gregory White wrote, they could have kids. Because I actually have a copy of it, of the original Highlander script. He actually went to one of his dead wife's funerals. She died of old age, and his children and grandchildren are there. He still looks 20 years old, and his kids and grandkids are pretty up there. They're like in their 40s, 50s, and he still looks young, and he's at his former wife's grave and at their funeral, and they're like talking to him, interacting with him. So I found that concept pretty. If they had left that in there, how would that have been if Connor would have had other wives down through time and did have children, and he'd have to go to his kids' graves and mourn his children, and he outlived his children. Look, can you imagine looking 20 years old and your children are 80
Or like
90?
50s or
They go, hey
80s.
dad, and you just look like you just fucking fresh out of high school, and they're senior citizens with their teeth hanging out and stuff.
Never know. Maybe they'll put that back in the remake.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and I heard there is a remake. They're going to reboot Highlander
With Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill's supposed to. I think that I'm looking forward to it. I think he'll make a great fucking Connor.
Unless he's all busy with Superman stuff. But.
Right. Okay, so we got the postcards, the poster.
Now we got the comic book.
Buttons. Yeah. Now I actually have this whole series, Way of the Sword. This is a reprint of issue 1. I have this whole series. Dynamite Comics did this a few years back, and I actually got it all. It's a good little series. He met the Kurgan back then.
This is
and
during
they
the
fought.
Spanish Armada, right?
It was during the American Revolution. If I
American
remember right.
Revolution.
Yeah. Anyway, he loses his sword with this battle with the Kurgan. And so he went all these years without the sword. He didn't have his katana, according to this series, and he's able to acquire it back from someone who found it in a museum. The Kurgan drops it somewhere. I mean, it's been like 8 years since I read this story. So he ends up getting it back. So he spent most of his life, at least since the 1700s, without his mentor's sword. So, but this is issue 1. It's a reprint of that.
Miniature version too.
And actually, if I remember right, this ninja is after the sword too. It's the one who originally made the blade was Masamune. One of his descendants says it's my sword, it's rightfully mine, and I want it back. So him and Connor's fighting to get the blade back. And I don't think he's immortal though.
Oh, they're just trying to get his sword back. Huh?
Yeah, he's a ninja though. I remember that. So, but anyway, it's pretty interesting. You get that issue 1 of that comic book, and I recommend you to. I think this is also in trade paperback. You can track
think
it
so
down.
too.
Way of the Sword. So I think that's about it.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Besides, let's see what bonus features we have on here.
I'd read on the back of that.
If I can see the damn thing. Okay, on the special disc, it's the immortal attraction of Highlander, looking back at the 4 decades. Highlander magic. You also get a new kind of magic. Music of the Immortals, a featurette on the soundtrack. So all this is new stuff that's on the 4K disc. All new stuff. You get a focus on the immortal, on the music of probably Queen, and also the instrumental soundtrack. You get Capturing Immortality, Interview with the Photographer David James, There Can Be Only One Kurgan, an interview with Clancy Brown and Remembering Highlander. That's going to be something worth watching right there. I mean, Clancy Brown, man, he's done The Green Mile. He's done
Pet Cemetery 2.
Pet Cemetery. Yeah, you never even talk about Pet. I loved him in Pet Cemetery.
He was in the first episode of the Sleepy Hollow TV show.
Yeah. He's played in so many great shows and movies, and he's a classic villain. You get new audio commentary with James Melville. You get audio commentary with Russell McKay, the guy who directed Highlander and also the shitty second sequel.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Audio commentary with Russell McKay, William Panzer, and Davis. They were the guys who originally bought the script, who found the script, and they changed it to the Highlander that we know today, the movie. So they kind of were the ones that made the changes where immortals couldn't have kids and made it the shooting script that the movie became. And they also did the shitty sequels as well as the TV series with Duncan MacLeod. Now, another little bit of trivia facts. That's if you watch TV show and aware of it, you maybe say, "Where's Duncan MacLeod?" Well, originally, when they came up with the concept of the TV show, they wanted it to be about the life of Connor MacLeod. This was the original plan: go through the life of Connor MacLeod, four and a half centuries. Well, they couldn't get Christopher Lambert to want to do the TV series. He at that time he was doing other movies. He says, but I will do the opening episode. I will make an appearance in the opening episode. So they said, okay, we're going to have to come up with a new actor. So they found, of course, the man who played Adrian Paul. Adrian Paul was the one who they hired to play the role for Connor MacLeod. But originally he said, no, I don't want to play Connor MacLeod because he was afraid his portrayal would be constantly compared to that of Christopher Lambert's. And he didn't want that. He said, the only way I'm going to do it is if you give me my whole new character, something that I can build and develop on my own. So they said, okay. So at first they didn't like that. They said, okay, we'll work with that. Thus, the character of Duncan MacLeod, who was clansman, kinsman, cousin to Connor. And so that's how Duncan MacLeod came to be. Originally, Adrian Paul was to play Connor. He didn't want to do it. He wanted his own character. They created that. And so Christopher Lambert came on and was supposedly he trained and taught Duncan MacLeod and all that. And originally everyone was like, oh, he's got a sword like Connor's. Well, originally that's what they were saying, because if you go back and watch the first episode of the Highlander TV show, Connor has a regular katana sword. He's not using his. Duncan has the ornamented dragon head katana. Well, that's supposed to have been Connor's. They didn't have the original design exactly the way the first Highlander movie was, but the dragon head katana was supposed to have been Connor's. It was given to him by Ramirez. This is a fact. Well, what happened was later on, I guess by 2 or 3 seasons, they changed that storyline that he met a Japanese samurai. He was shipwrecked in Japan, was saved by this samurai warrior, and he trained him and gave him the sword, passed it to him. And so it kind of threw some contradictions in there, because if you go back to the first season, Joan Jett was actually in it.
Actually, there's quite a few celebrities that was in that movie.
Joan Jett was playing a role of an immortal. He was training her, and he taught her. He said, you must make your sword part of you. You must be one with it. He said, this sword here was given to me by my mentor and my clansman. Who's his mentor and clansman? Connor. He said, this was given to me by him. This sword is one with me. It's part of me. You must make your sword one with you.
He also did the Raven, too, but we won't talk about that.
But anyway, so at the Blu-ray, let's look at that. We get an interview with Russell Mulcahy, which we're going to be able to watch. Russell Mulcahy, an interview with Christopher Lambert, the making of documentary. We get deleted scenes, another audio commentary with Russell Mulcahy. I think this is the same stuff that's already on the Immortal Edition. So I definitely got to invest in an Ultra-K player.
We'll figure this out.
But either way, I highly recommend this series. I haven't watched it, but just for what little extra stuff you're getting here, I think, well, what did we pay for this? What did you pay for that?
I paid.
I think it was like $50, something like that.
$50, but I think with tax and all, it was like 60 something.
Yeah, with the shipping, handling, of course.
58, $60.
So pick it up, Highlander, the Ultra K edition. I think you're going to love it. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
And remember, there could be only
There
one.
can be only one. And who is the only one? It's Connor McLeod.
And it's not Duncan.
He is the Highlander. And also that damn show, that movie Endgame.
Endgame.
That was total bullshit. I remember I went to the movie and seen that. The only 2 times where I was in the theater, I almost just got up and just committed an act of violence. And just, I was so pissed was, number 1, when they killed Han Solo off.
In The Force Awakens.
And when they did Duncan, or did Connor McLeod,
And
killing him off and making this crybaby pussy who hated his life. Which was so...
He was just like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, he was doing that Luke Skywalker bullshit.
Before Luke did it.
Yeah, they took Connor McLeod, who was a badass character. He was a survivor. He was weary and tired, but he was a survivor. He wasn't a lay down and died or went and had himself put in some cataclysmic, sleep where he couldn't, because he was trying to hide away and didn't want to deal with the hardships of life. He was Connor McLeod. And so they screwed that up, man. So if you watch the original Highlander, go see Endgame, you're going to see, dude,
The first movie is the only one that matters.
Yeah, you can tell Endgame was all about the passing of the torch to Duncan. That's more of a sequel to the TV show, I guess.
Like Luke Skywalker passing the mantle to Rey Skywalker.
So you need to take that shitty sequel and put that up there with like Star Wars with their shitty. They should never have been made. It has nothing to do with the originals. They're totally out of context with the originals. There's one immortal, and it's Connor McLeod. Anything you want to add, Rick, before we close this up?
I just love the movie, man. I was raised on this, and I like Final Dimension. I do like that one. That's the third
Final
movie.
Dimension is the more,
there's parts of Endgame I did like, but yeah, mainly I feel the same way. Like Endgame was a piece of crap too, but there was stuff I liked about it too.
Yeah, there was a couple. I liked some of the flashback scenes of Endgame. I liked where him and Duncan, their flashback scenes when they were going through time together.
Oh, also
during the training sequences, I like that.
You need to also talk about Holy Ground. How many can fight at one time?
Yeah, the rules of the Immortals, and then again, you wonder how the rules came about, but it was tradition.
Yeah.
And you don't need to know how it came about. It just was. Immortals cannot fight on holy ground. That was the one place in the world they were safe. And sometimes they would. Matter of fact, that was in the TV series
where they just lived on holy ground. They would
live on holy ground. They would build a sanctuary or a home there, and they would stay there for a while. They need to get out of the game. That's what it's called. Game.
Get out of it for a while, but some of them try to get out of it permanently. But.
I know Duncan. He had a cabin built on holy ground, on an Indian burial ground, and So if you kind of go through the movies, and there was, as a matter of fact, in the Final Dimension, that was one of the things I call bullshit on. Well, there was a Kurgan wannabe Kane who is his adversary.
Mario
Van Peebles.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he's actually. I call him Kurgan Jr. in Final Dimension. They fight on holy ground. He comes and challenges him in a
and the sword
shrine.
Blows up.
Yeah, and they're fighting. All of a sudden, the sword explodes. Connor's sword explodes, and it's like the powers that be that are over the immortals warn him, you don't do this, or you're both going to die. You can't do this. So they end the fight. And if you see that fight, you see Mario Van Peebles. He looks up like, holy shit. Something just intervened, like I shouldn't have did that. And he ran for his life and all that stuff. Like knew he did a taboo. He shouldn't have started that fight on holy ground. So yeah, that was one of the rules definitely established. No fighting on holy ground. Yeah. And so I thought that was, and that's what I'm saying. Highlanders.
And when they did an end game, it was like, oh, the powers to be didn't step in that time. They didn't care,
when you had Jacob Kell going around and murdering them, he was just chopping them off because they had some immortals
in a church, a monastery,
in a church hidden away, like put in catatonic state. And that's what Connor had done, and he just come in and chopped their heads off and murdered them. And it's like, dude, you can't do that. That's so
Well, they also fought on a graveyard too. Remember, they were in the graveyard and they fought. And...
Yeah. So yeah, there's so much on Endgame that was just so bullshit you couldn't really go with it. So pick it up, Highlander Ultra K edition. You can order it from Zavi. Is that Zavi. And you can do a Google search. You can get it on Amazon. Costs more money on Amazon. So just
I got cheaper on Zavi. So
yeah, it is Zavi.
It was like $58, $60.
Yeah. So definitely worth. Nice packaging, beautiful presentation. The postcards, the posters,
comic book.
Yeah, a little comic book. Definitely worth the money you paid for it, man. I'm very happy.
And it's a collector's edition, man.
Yeah.
It's a box set. We love box sets.
But I've been waiting my life for something like this to come out for Highlander, or something like that. This kind of a packaging we finally got it. So next, I just got to invest into a
4K player. And there's plenty of other good box sets we're wanting to get too. I can't think of anything at the
I
moment.
definitely
But
want to get Rambo, the first.
yeah,
Blood.
the First Blood one.
Huge First Blood fan.
I got a lot of good stuff out there, but this is the one we want. This is the holy grail right here, dude. So,
right.
And I guess if you don't pick it up now, eventually someone's going to get it and sell for 150, 200
it's
bucks.
It's a limited edition. I think they only did a few hundred of these. I can't remember exact numbers, but it's only a few hundred. Once they sell out, they don't make any more. And then any secondhand ones are going to be going for a lot of money. So pick it up.
Yeah.
It's the Ricks signing out.